Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Christian, for the invitation, and good morning to all the participants and speakers and attendants. Net zero is the topic of the day, I would say, the topic of the year, and this is with no surprise. In the past years, we have experienced an exponential growth of interest in the topics connected to the global warming, the climate change, the energy transitions, of course. Many events tracking the path towards what we can consider a new sustainable model for social economical model for the future. The most recent event has been, of course, the COP26, which marked an unprecedented commitment, global commitment. For the first time after Kyoto, at least as far as I remember, all countries of the globe, most of the countries are participating to the COP26. So let's not be too optimistic. Not all the countries, but most of the, let's say, influencing countries of the globe fixed the deadline for the net zero goals. Most of the countries confirmed their targets. Others had to modify their roadmap, but let's say the key words of the COP26 was actually net zero, which I think it's important because going behind the Paris Agreement and 1.5 degrees and start discussing about a real, let's say, economical, social economical equilibrium going forward, a permanent, long-lasting equilibrium. It's what I think we have to embrace in the next 20 years. So the keywords after the net zero, I think, is cooperation, because of course now we have a goal quite clear, and it's time to start now working for our commitments. And the question is how. So the net zero ambition is not only related, of course, to energy production, but you have to face the reality. 30 years are basically nothing to solve what is a fundamental problem, probably the biggest global problem we have today. And it's a global one. So the CO2 molecule emitted in our distribution territory, or wherever you are, is exactly having the same effect of a molecule emitted from any other sector in any other country. So this is, of course, a global shared problem. And I think we can only tackle this issue, this problem, if we work together. So let's start off understanding how we can work together in the sector first. So in the electricity sector in particular, and in the distribution sector more. So we need, in my opinion, to connect more. An event like these are, of course, very much welcome because are in the right direction of sharing experiences, defining common technological pathways, in order to make net zero not only a slogan or a target, but a reality. So collaboration within DSOs, among DSOs, is crucial to have let's say, achievable target at the right cost for the final consumers. But of course, this is not enough because, of course, we don't work in isolation. Our cooperation must include all the other stakeholders connected to the electricity networks, to understand the future needs, their present and future needs, and to coordinate the evolution of our infrastructure accordingly. So if we talk about the energy transition, we have to understand what does it mean in practical terms, so that producers, consumers, charging point operators, aggregators, and electrifying customers can be included into the equation. So their needs can be as an important part of the planning of the grid expansion, grid evolution, both from a dimensional and technological point of view. And that's not enough because, of course, we have to complete, let's say, the setting of the cooperation with the support of institutions, regulators, the standardization committees, who must be available to rediscuss standards and let's say, the decisions taken in the past, where the scenario was completely different, adapting the new standards, for example, to the present needs, including sustainability aspects in the standards rule for the technology that we use every day in our grids, removing possibly time-consuming bottlenecks for the authorization processes from in the old, let's say, institutional aspects of our daily life of an operator, from permitting of new projects or also standardization of a new technology. So bureaucracy, in my opinion, could be the most dangerous enemy of the energy transition, especially if we are having in mind a real net zero target in the next 15 years or so. So once that we have engaged this broader collaboration platform, I think the next step is planning the strategy. So to win this match, we need to look forward at the goal and not at the present condition. So we need to look with 10 years advance, bringing the 10 years needs today, because we know that grids are big, very big infrastructure, and crucial for the life of a society. And so working with a minimum 10 years view, span of view in front of us, it's crucial. For example, the primary resources like workforces, materials, the new technology, digital or not, that we have to use in the next 10 years in order to reach the net zero goals, must be available every time, every moment, whatever it happens from the economical point of view. No pandemic, no other kind of, let's say, source of distraction, because during the next 10 years, we cannot suffer of, let's say, shortages of any possible resources needed for the net zero goal, which we are experiencing today, as we all know. So to do so, the long-term planning strategy should be performing, sharing our future needs with the supply chain partners. So today we may have an idea what is going to be the grid in 10 years, but if you just go one level down and you talk to suppliers of our sector, there is not the same level of clarity, and the maximum time span in front of them is 2 years, the duration of a contract typically. So stimulating and adapting alignment with our ambitious targets, also value chain, which is absolutely crucial. So we need innovative solution, sustainable by design, and affordable by everyone. And to do that, we need time. That's why we have to plan it now, so that we have them available when they are needed in the grid. And that's the key concept of what we call the grid futurability, which is, let's say, a new approach of planning the grid in order to prepare our journey towards the net zero target based on this principle. So we have a project. Can you hear me well, by the way? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, because I noise coming on the back. So grid futurability is, let's say, the global and customer-oriented industrial approach that we in Enel are adopting to identify and prioritize enforcement and expansion in the coming years. So we are planning today what we need to do in 5, 7, up to 10 years of time in every single piece of the grids. Of course, this involves a strategic spread of cutting edge to transform the grids, combining advanced digital solutions to make them more, we call participatory, and that's the key word, sustainable, because in order to achieve real sustainability, we need to probably change maybe 50% of the specification of the grids, lowering the carbon footprint of what we use today, substituting many equipments in the future. That's why before I was talking of standardization. So we have to include sustainability aspects in the grid today, so we can start lowering the carbon footprint of our technology going forward. So we have to prepare the grid for the future, for a complete decarbonized and electrified world, being our carbonized as much as we can, in order to offer the best quality of service to the customer, but also to be in tune with the ambition of the entire society to become more lean, more decarbonized, affordable, considering also that we will have to use technology suitable for low spending power countries, where the same ambitions, the same targets, the same needs of decarbonization will be present, because the problem, as we said, is global. So we have to help by developing technology that can be used also in emerging countries or converging countries, as much as we will use them in advanced economies. So to reach our net zero goals, sustainability, again, must be at the core of the future business. For this reason, we started integrating new principles, new sustainability principles in all our processes. But most importantly, this is an entire new chapter for the engineering of the grid. So we use the typical engineering and economical to define a new technology or to define an engineering standard. Now we have an entire new chapter, design principles, which is related to sustainability. So if a solution is not sustainable, it's not in line with the net zero ambitions, we cannot define or use or design that specific engineering solution. So we're starting today because probably you know Enel has anticipated to 2040, so with 10 years advance with a general global commitment taken into the COP26. So we want to be net zero as a company by 2040. So we don't have that much time in front of us because, as we said, the grid is wide. Our grid is immense. We are one of the biggest operations globally. So if we want to be ready by 2040, we feel the sense of urgency already today. So to be clear, we are working with an holistic approach on all the three sectors, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 of emissions. So the direct, indirect, and related. A few examples. Scope 1, we know perfectly that in our business we use the sulfur hexafluoride emissions because we use as an insulating gas in many equipment. So the SF6, which, just to give you some figures, globally emits, let's say, has the same effect, the same greenhouse effect of about 100 million cars emitting CO2. So it's a, sizable, visible impact. Not the biggest one, of course, but it's for sure one that is quite visible if considered globally. It is used in about 30 million units of switch gears worldwide, which installations in the next years is supposed to increase. So we have to ban SF6 from now. There are alternatives, yes. We know that perfectly that we are responsible, we as an energy industry are responsible for more than 80% of the emissions of SF6 in the atmosphere. So we are working not in isolation. I will explain in a moment why, to find alternatives to the SF6 to be substituted with the other gas mixtures. This is possible. And it will be even more possible if we work together, because of course our isolators, our switch gears are not different from the ones that are used by our peers, our colleagues. So working together, it's crucial in order to don't pay a premium for a sustainable solution, which is, I think, the key aspects of going forward. So we have to use sustainable solution at the cost of possibly even cheaper than the solution that we use today. And we can do that if we transform quickly what is an innovation into a standard, widely used technology. And to do that, we have decided to open up in a pure approach our specifications. So in a few days, there will be a portal where every manufacturer, every developer, every competitor, let's say every peer, distribution operator can go and draw down, let's say, download the engineering specification of Enel, just as a matter of comparison of stimulation. If you want to check what we are doing in order to try to converge into global common specification to reduce the effort of the manufacturer to converge quickly towards the sustainability that we're talking now. Other example, we want to substitute the corporate light duty and heavy duty vehicles for the operation on the grid. Today, for certain uses, not in all countries are available pure electric vehicle. Think, for example, the movable cranes or stuff like that. Typically, they are not electric, but we are now defining the use cases and talking to the equipment manufacturer in order to convince them to start producing those equipment quickly, much quicker than, much early on than their actual marketing schedule. And my consideration here is that if we could do this together, we would have a market power much stronger in order to convince a car manufacturer or a truck manufacturer or secondary, let's say, truck installators to work with us faster, because that's another source of emissions that we have to tackle. On scope 2, of course, it's about the reduction of the technical losses of electricity. This is about 45% of our total emissions. It's about 3.6 million of CO2 equivalent tons. And by working well with digitalization, measuring exactly in which point of the grid you are, let's say, wasting energy in the grid, still a huge space for improvement is possible. So we plan that with our ambition reduction target, we can save more than 13,000 gigawatt hours, which is the equivalent of many new renewable plants, just to give you an example. So the measuring, studying, defining a solution and implementing them is possible in order to drastically reduce the technical losses in the grids, even in the most advanced ones like the one we have in Europe. Finally, the scope 3. Scope 3 is what the one are the, let's say, the supply chain. So working with the procurement supply chain for new components and devices, as we said before, it's crucial. So we have to start pressing and pushing our supply chain in order to start this journey together with us. So opening our specification publicly, it's absolutely, I think, a crucial part of things to do in order to converge to common solutions, to make them cost less. Again, I said it again because I think it's very important. Using recycled material and not only thinking of recyclable. I would rephrase this again. Introducing recycled immediately now and not just ask of having recyclable materials at the end of the life of our grid, because we have to start contributing to reduce the carbon footprint today. For an example, our digital meters, our smart meters, are today made for 54% of the total weight of recycled plastic coming from the old. And we will reach more by absorbing plastic coming from other things. And the goal is, of course, in very few years, but very few, I mean, by within 2025, to have a completely recycled and, of course, recyclable digital meter. So the digital meter will be completely circular from 2025. So we can keep going by biodegradable alternatives, or for insulation oils or transformers, and so on. So, but this will be quite boring. Working together with supply chain in order to start pressing the supply chain to innovate and introduce more sustainable technologies. I will conclude by saying that we don't want to keep this only for us, and indeed we are the grid futurability approach has been put at the center of the idea of incorporating the Grid Expertise Company, which is a company that we have formed and launched in 2021, allocating in Grid Expertise our more than 20 years experience in the digitalization and the digital solution for grids, not only on the smart meters, but on the entire, let's say, spectrum of technologies that in a modern grid are used. So Grid Expertise is now a commercial company that, again, leveraging on the 20 years experience of Enel, is offering digital solutions to any DSO operator around the world, with the goal of helping grid operators to lead the digital journey that we started many years ago, for which we, as I said, in the pure spirit of us considering this global problem, let's say, solvable only with global common solutions, Grid Expertise is on the market in order to help any grid operator that want to speed up in the digital journey. Because there is one thing that we have understood, one lesson learned that is coming quite clear to us. Digitalize the grid is important in order to go towards the energy transition for the complexity, the flexibility, the presence of new actors in the grid, but also to try to resist more infrastructure Meanwhile, we will cope with the hardening of the weather phenomenon that unfortunately the climate change is presenting to us. And the digitalization, it's a fantastic tool to do more with the existing assets. So that's extraordinarily important also for emerging economies where probably the financeability and the spending power of consumers will not allow easily massive investment programs in the next years. So to conclude, in the next years, we will face some pressure on us. We know it. We will need to invest to prepare the grids for the energy transition. But this transformation must be conducted in a very sustainable way, which I think is not a problem. It's not a limit. Actually, it's an opportunity because we can introduce new material, new technologies, new circular processes. Meanwhile, we will renovate the grids, which we'll have to do anyhow because we have to prepare for the energy transition and to resist to the hardening of the weather all around the world. And this will give us the occasion to reduce the carbon footprint, so to be more ready or completely ready for our shared. That's my vision.